but he said, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become, right? Because it's so easy to go, oh, it doesn't matter that I eat this cookie, or it doesn't matter that I have this drink, or it doesn't matter that I skip this workout, right? But not only do we intellectually know the power of compounding, right? We know that it's important, right? But the fact, like, what helps me reframe is that idea that, yes, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become, or the person you're committed to being. Dean Miles, my friend, good to see you.
Brilliant, Miller. It's been a hot second. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yes. Glad to be with you today. I'm glad to be embarking on this adventure with you, weekly active service, podcast, newsletter that we're working both to grow, learn ourselves, and to share and hopefully inspire and benefit others.
Is that all? Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's a worthy challenge, and I'm excited to do this with you.
Yes. So one thing that I thought would be cool is if we start each one of these with an icebreaker question. Now, I'm not sure right now if we want to answer this question or just share it, right? And
Okay.
my inclination is that we don't actually take the time to answer the question. This podcast isn't so much about us as much as it is about things we're discovering that are helping us feel more alive, bringing us, a sense of expansion of the qualities that make life worth living, right? Fun, joy, adventure, curiosity, elation, all the empowering and good things. So it's with that in mind that I share an icebreaker question that people listening could use when they're meeting people, right? In social settings. And rather than the, where are you from? How many kids do you have? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for a living? Just presenting a simple option that people might be able to use next time they're on a plane or at a cocktail party, or, maybe meeting somebody at a golf course or wherever they are.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the question that I'll share this time. This is a question that I learned from Jonah Whitcamper, founder of Nexus, a global group of philanthropists, investors, activists, and so forth. And he hosts a conference, or used to plan a conference, still happens every year. And he would say this on the opening night and encourage people to go beyond what might be superficial questions, to get to know each other better and connect, maybe even on a soul level. And the question is, what are you passionate about? So there's the icebreaker. There's the icebreaker question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, what I like about that, I'm doing my best not to answer it, but just what does it make me do inside? A little bit of panic, a little bit of, do I want to share this or not? Like what filter do I want to use? Because there may be some things I'm passionate about that I don't want this audience to know. But I think what makes it a great icebreaker, Brilliant, is that it gets us off our script. I mean, it goes to a core of authenticity. Good question.
100%. It's a pattern interrupt, right? And that's not the reason to ask it per se, but it, as a pattern interrupt, is something that's beyond the normal, kind of slate of questions that we might be asking. It does give a chance for an answer beyond the standard rote, the thing you've said 1,000 times and so forth. So there's that. And then just hearing you share your take on this question too, now I'm reminded of the power then to follow it up, not just, because it was an interesting question, but also with listening, right? With some actual listening and hearing. But I don't know if you're like me, and just to stay with this question for a moment, when I go somewhere, I'm always looking to develop and deepen friendships. And so for me, this question, like some of the icebreaker questions that we'll ask in subsequent conversations, is a chance to do some, I don't want to say like evaluating, right? But to figure out, is this the kind of person that I want to cultivate a friendship with? And this question gives us the chance to do that, I think, in a way that some of these other questions don't.
Now you're making me think, if you're going to ask this question, there's responsibility on you having asked this question. Because if you ask me, so Dean, what do you do for a living?
Mhm.
and I start to answer that, and then you then realize that you're not interested or you get distracted and you move on, that's
Uh-huh.
not quite as damaging to me as if you were to ask me, "So, Dean, what's your passion?"
Yeah.
Because bring it, this happened to me, so I know I'm not the common denominator here because I went and asked other people if they had a similar experience. I was at this event called Thinkers 50 in London, where they bring in some of the best thinkers around the world on business topics. And so these are good expert type conversational people. And so they were at this advanced level, and I got asked questions like, "Dean, what's your passion?" And I'm 6 seconds in. And then they saw the person that they really wanted to go talk to,
Oh,
and
man.
they left me.
Oh, dude. Wow.
So I'm just bearing my soul only to be, "Oh, wait, they left."
Wow.
So there's responsibility. If you're gonna ask a
Yeah.
question like this, you need to be prepared to listen.
Yeah. I'm with you. Okay. Fun. So thanks for exploring that with me, and the power of questions. I'm committed that a single question can
Mhm.
change your whole life. So anyway, powerful. Okay, let's talk for just a moment about why the things you brought to share and discuss in this conversation matter. Why do they matter this week, Dean?
'Cause it's a 20-year look back. I mean, so there's a lot behind me.
Mhm.
Um, and so I just had some insight about that of what does that mean to have a 20-year history in something.
Mm, yes. Okay. For me, why what I brought to share matters is that they're all about living an intentional life. The two things
Mm.
that I want to share that I've been working with recently are about making the most of the precious years we have on this planet. So that's why this matters to me this week.
Ann Dillard says this, "How we spend our days is how we spend our lives."
Hmm,
And I
I
like
like
that
that.
a lot. And then Mary Oliver has this poem that I read a couple years ago called "The Summer Day," and she says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?"
Hmm, I love that.
So, I can't wait to hear what you'll do with that and what matters to you.
Okay, well, I'll jump in. I'll share, and it's perfect that you talk about Mary Oliver, a poet, because that was a poetry is actually part of this first one. So here we are recording this in January of 2026, heading into a new year, and I have, for as long as I can remember, been a pretty big goal setter, and I've loved New Year's resolutions I've set and taken a lot of pride in the fact that I've achieved a lot of the New Year's resolutions goals I've set for myself, and like is often normal too, abandoned some. Um, but this was the first year in decades that I didn't really set goals for myself, and I don't know if this is that I'm closing in on 50 years old, but this thing that I did instead of this goal setting process that I've done for so long is something I learned from Tim Ferriss. He has this blog post about doing a past year review. And the way that it works is to go through your calendar for the previous year, look at all the things you scheduled. Now, of course, a lot of what we've done never made it to the calendar. So for me, I also looked back through my camera roll and I looked through some of my text messages, and then I do a daily journal where I just jot down what I
Mm,
did every single day. So I had the
mm,
benefit of all of that to pour through. And I spent a few hours, and what Tim encourages us to do is to take a sheet of paper, or of course you could open a file on your phone, and to make two lists. What you might call the positive or the negative, but the life-giving or the life-draining. And to just put in those and acknowledge in this past 12 months what was everything that gave me life and what was everything that sucked life from me. And then from there to do the old 80-20 and look at what are the top 20% type things that I did or that happened to me. And similarly, the bottom 20% things, get really clear about those. And for the top 20 in the positive column, to actually schedule more of those now,
mm,
to put them on the calendar going forward. And I thought that was super interesting to approach the coming year, knowing that these are things that I appreciate, enjoy, bring me alive, help me connect, like all this. And to use that as the way that I schedule my time, I use my time, and it's not an either or. So this isn't saying that you can't set goals, but for me, this was things like having breakfasts in diners on weekends with people I love, eating more cheeseburgers, um, having reading poetry was one of those things that I actually wrote down. So I love that. And, of course, there's so much more, but as a
Right.
process, that was a really eye-opening thing. And already just a few weeks into this year, it has guided me, and I'm really enjoying this past
Yeah,
year
so let me
process.
ask you this. I mean, I wonder if the cheeseburgers come into play on this question, because it seems like, I mean, it's such a weird, as you're trying to do this 80-20 exercise, that some of the most meaningful stuff looks invisible while it's happening.
Mhm.
How is that part of maybe your daily? Is that you start to see some of these invisible things because you can then compound and stack them? Where does
But
that take you?
well, I mean, that's where I think the power of review and reflection, right? I'm able to look
Nice.
back, and while I was living them, they might not have seemed all that significant, but then with awareness, with the power of perspective, I can see, oh, that
Mm.
was meaningful. And I want to intentionally, where I can, recreate more of those things.
So just being a couple of weeks then into 2026, what do you see that's becoming in you then?
Well, definitely this has reaffirmed, what we know about the power of relationships. Almost everything on my list, either by necessity involved other people, or it was enhanced when done with other people.
I think that's fascinating insight.
Yeah.
As you reflect back, you've had moments of isolation. There's times you do things on purpose for isolation. How do you contrast? How do you know when to do which? When do you need to be alone and when do you need those relationships?
That's a question that I see, like, if we're when I listen, I know, right? And I've heard this description about introverts and extroverts, right? That extroverts are people for whom being with others gives them energy,
Mhm.
and introverts are people for whom being with others takes their energy. And so it's interesting to find that balance of being alone. I think for an extrovert can be, kind of an unpleasant thing, but for an introvert, it's paradise. And it's just really listening to myself. If I look back at weeks where I've been in one mode or the other, necessarily
Mm.
like at a conference or, during a trip with friends or family. And so I'm basically, from the moment I wake up, I'm more with others than alone. And then times where it's, the opposite, it's I just see, if I really listen to myself, I can see what I'm yearning more for, you know?
Right. I heard someone say that they didn't, if that's not true, then I read it, that being alone is not the same as being lonely.
Oh, absolutely. Like solitude and loneliness, right, they're not the same thing. You can be in solitude and not be alone. And by the way, this I think goes along with this idea that is a pretty interesting idea about the difference between physical space and emotional space. That
Mhm.
we can be separated from someone by many miles and still feel close to them. Or conversely, we can be right next to somebody sitting on the couch, living in the same home, and feel a gulf between us. So yeah, loneliness and I like isolation, being alone, they're not necessarily the same at all.
So brilliant. Some of us listeners know that you've done a lot of research and deep thought around this idea of a good life, the school of good living. The question we've kind of asked ourselves is, what gave me life this week? And so when you say life, what does that mean?
I think the best way that I know how to answer that right now is anything that is accompanied by a sense of expansion, right? Because in life, essentially in this universe of polarity and duality, up and down, left and right, hot and cold, light and dark, right? That there's all things seem to exist in some kind of duality that, and even in the life sciences, there's this anabolic and catabolic. There's what gives life and what destroys life, chemically and physically. So to me, like life giving is that which is accompanied by a sense of expansion. And conversely, there's contraction. And that's what takes life. Now, that's
Mm.
kind of a simplistic thing, but I think most people seem to get that. Like what makes me feel alive. If I'm with somebody and I'm feeling intimidated or I'm feeling I'm feeling concerned or whatever, and that's like a closing down. It's like a sort of contraction versus when I'm with people that I know love me, right? That aren't concerned if I say or do something a little bit foolish, right? That in one scenario, it's much easier for me to be alive, to be
Mm.
self-expressed. Just so that's how I would say that which gives us a sense of expansion, which by the way is the flow state is for me maybe the ultimate expression of that because one of the things that seems to happen is the self just disappears and life happens. You're skiing, right? You're riding, whatever you're
Mm.
doing. You're riding a motorcycle, you're making love,
Mm.
you're playing music. Like in that's like the ultimate sense of like life is happening through you. Dean, what have you brought? What's giving you life this week?
The continuity here, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, Brilliant, is this idea of review. So there's something about these apps that we have today, Spotify and even your travel apps will give you these wrap ups, right? Your year in review, which is really, really fascinating. I mean, there's a flex aspect of this of how many genres of music did you listen to so you can beat everyone in your LinkedIn groups. One of those that came up for me is that I've been doing this 19 years and 1 month. By this, I mean advising executive coaching. Sitting with it, what gave me life this week was realizing that I'm not looking back on 19 years. I'm actually standing inside my 20th year.
Hmm.
And there was just something about how that landed for me. Because my initial thought was the flex side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ICF, International Coach Federation, their highest level is an MCC, a Master Certified Coach. It requires 2,500 paid coaching hours. So in my log, I'm sitting at 12,760 hours. So 10,260 hours past the highest bar. It's 5 times the requirement. So I'm like, what does that mean? So if MCC is equivalent of mastering and getting your driver's license, I'm the equivalent of driving around the world 25 times. I
Wow.
mean, like there's a lot there. Here's what I wasn't expecting. Instead of pride, I felt more gratitude and responsibility, not for where I've come from, but now standing in this 20th year. And so that kind of took my breath away a little bit of just all these individual conversations, all these individual hours of people that trusted me, their uncertainty, their becoming, um, and then just realizing that I'm still becoming too,
Mm.
that here in this 20th year, standing inside of it, I'm now, I'm completing my dissertation. That's not a true statement. I am starting my dissertation. So still becoming. And both is exciting, but it's also exhausting.
Yeah.
So even though I'm standing in my 20th, I easily have 20 more to go. I
That's
better
awesome.
stay becoming. This
Yeah.
better bring me life. Yeah. So what do you hear in that?
Yeah. Well, definitely this sense of being on a journey,
Mm.
um, and that you're on a journey yourself as a coach, decades in, more than 10,000 hours, past the 10,000 hour rule that Gladwell popularized. Um,
Right.
and your clients, of course, you've helped them on a journey. And I think, when I started learning from Jack Canfield, principles of coaching and facilitation, public speaking and so forth. And he said, as you walk this path, there are times where you will walk. Are people who are ahead of you, people who are behind
Right.
you, and people who are walking side by side with you. And that will always be true, right? There's always a bigger fish. There's always someone who's looking up to you, this kind of thing. And I'm just remembering the reality of that as you're on your journey and thinking about how you are not only looking back, but looking forward already. And that, those next 20, uh, think about what it was like to go from 0 to 1, where you were to where you are.
Yes.
And if you went from 0 to 1, are you now going to be able to go from 1 to 100 or something, dramatic like that?
Yes, and brilliant. I mean, so man, I sure hope so. But I remember that this was true. I mean, there were years where nobody was clapping. I mean, there were lots of moments where I was like, am I on the right path here? I mean, my first 2 years of coaching, I'm sleeping in my car. I mean, I have no money. I cannot afford the hotel. I mean, what I see now is that staying with it worked, but I know all of us have these different moments. So if I were listening to this podcast 18 years ago, I'd be like, oh, well, good for this guy, right? I mean, good for you, 25 times around the planet. I'm still trying to pay a mortgage.
Yeah.
There's something about just knowing that seasonality. There's something about the longer I stayed, just the more careful I've become with other people's stories. Because odds are I will probably have another do-over, another season where I begin something. Like even this PhD process, I guarantee my writing that I'm sending to my chair, he's not impressed. He's not clapping, right? I mean, I've gone all the way back to this really being a student again. Not even having 10 hours in on this PhD process.
That's a good place to be. I mean, this is the idea of the beginner's mind, right? And no matter how advanced you become, always retaining that, what in Asian studies is, the don't know mind, the sense of newness, of wonder, of presence in every moment. So I don't think that's a bad place to be.
No, I mean, I've learned that experience, it shouldn't make you louder. It should make you a bit more humble.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just realizing as much as we are doing things on purpose, it really is in the invisible. And so as the work keeps working on me, kind of as a phrase.
Yeah. One other thing that I want to just share with it on this, about what you're saying, is this idea, right, of a calling as well. And I think it's not always easy for us to know whether we're heeding our calling or not, whether we have a calling, whether we found a calling, if we're on the path, should we stay on the path, right? So there's all these questions and doubts and so forth. And I know what I'm about to say can sound a little reductionistic or simplistic, but this idea, man, and this is such a dance in my experience, it's such a duality, right? Is that something can be a calling by the simple fact that you say it is, that you declare it, right? I don't know that there's a universal truth beyond, this life that's just waiting to be recognized, and the cosmic curtains part and you see your calling and, right, receive it and go pursue it with that kind of certainty. Like, I don't know that happens. I think it becomes your calling because you say it and then you live it, right? And that's the Ben Hardy, the great book title of Be Your Future Self Now, is, okay, if I'm declaring this is it, I'm walking toward it, my actions are congruent with it. Now that's one side. And then the other side, this was in 200 interviews with authors when I would ask people in many conversations, when did you first know you were an author? Right? Like, when was it first clear? And I have, in a way, come to believe that writers, and I'm not even saying successful writers, right? Because that idea of intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic, like, do you have the awards, the recognition, even the money, whatever, that's a whole other thing. But I have come to believe in a way that a writer, and this is, maybe it's true for a coach or anything, I'm not sure, is someone for whom they can't not do that thing. And I don't know, I mean, Dean, you and I have known each other for a few years, but I tend to think this is who you are expressed in the world, right? I don't think and you tell me, but I don't think you've had to will yourself in 2 decades to stay on the path as a coach. I think my sense of you is that you have allowed that to express itself through you. But you tell me, is that how that
Yeah,
occurs for you, or a little different?
yeah, I would agree with that, but nobody was clapping,
Right.
and if
And that's the
clapping means
intrinsic
yeah,
versus extrinsic, right? Because
right,
ultimately you weren't doing it for the accolades, right? You
right,
weren't doing it for the recognition. I imagine you were doing it partly because you enjoyed it, partly because you got to learn and grow, partly because you met other people, you were able to serve other people. And yes, it's nice when the applause and the recognition come. But if that's the motive to start the path, of course we'll quit early
right,
on when it gets hard.
right.
Because every path
Yes.
gets hard when you follow it with earnestness.
Yeah, and by clapping, I mean, those that know me, clapping more embarrasses me, but what I really mean by clapping is they're paying,
Mm,
right? I mean, I'm trying to transfer this, what's in me and who I am, and I still have responsibilities. And our friend Marshall Goldsmith talks about this a lot in this space of following passion is go to Nashville, Tennessee, and every Uber driver and every barista and every bartender will be some of the most amazing musicians you're ever going to meet that are just eating tacos and ramen every single day, waiting for it to happen. But they
mm,
can't see themselves doing it anything different because it's there, it's
yeah,
in them. And so they
yeah,
keep facing it, right? And so you can't change what you don't face, but once you face it, there's a chance to change. And I think there's just something in there where you enjoy the process and you hope that the results come.
yes, absolutely. This conversation is reminding me about how it might be good for me to go reread the Bhagavad Gita this year, and and a big part of that is this idea of we're entitled to our labor, but not the fruits of our labor. And it's like that's interesting. Being able to do something not because now we all, and again, that can sound simplistic
Right.
because we do have rents or mortgages to pay, food to put on the table, this kind of thing. But I think it is different to be driven by making money and earning recognition than it is to do something because we feel called to do it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It reminds me of this idea that if you're in the midlife moment right now, and not by midlife at 40 years old, I mean by midlife of you're in this career change and not feeling clicked. If things feel quieter than they used to, they feel flatter than they used to, it could be that nothing's wrong, right? It could be that something is still forming.
Right.
It's what's becoming that I just can't see yet. Those were some of
Yeah.
my pharmaceutical days. It was getting quieter. It was getting flatter. Something was becoming, but I just didn't know what it was yet. And that's when I got a coach for the first time in 2007 that
And
started to shift and identify.
and when you say pharmaceutical days, I'm not clear if you're saying when you were using a lot of pharmaceuticals or
That's a
no, when
fair
you were
follow-up.
when you were
I can
working
neither
in pharmaceutical sales.
pharmaceutical sales. Yes, exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. I was able to
Okay, I'm
pass
with
the drug test for sure.
I'm with you. Okay, so I know we're coming near the end of the time we've budgeted for this. I brought something else. Okay, I'm going to reach down and pull something out of my bag because I spontaneously remembered something else that it's something I found that has made my life a little better this week. Actually over the past few months, but it's this little thing called a D-Light. Now this was issued from last year, so it has the year of the snake on it. But this little
Wow.
thing is so cool. I actually found my daughter had one, and then I loved it so much I found one on Amazon and bought it myself. But it's a light, and part of what I love about it, it's so bright. It's hard to see now because the room is lit, but it has
Yeah.
3 modes, including a red light. And I'm not even sharing this. We're not earning a commission, right, on this. But part of what has been wonderful for is when I travel and I keep it in my bag. If I ever drop something on an
Yes.
airplane or it has a red light. So if I'm in a hotel room, especially if I'm with my wife and I'm up early, I don't want to disturb her and I don't necessarily want to be fully awake just yet. I just
Yes.
keep it by the bed, turn on the red light, navigate the room.
Wow.
It charges by USB. It's got a great design. It's really elegant. So I have loved actually the D-Light. The folks making this thing, they do all kinds of flashlights, and I bought a few different ones, and it's been super fun
Incredible.
and useful.
Incredible.
It's so useful. Plus, it's a great gift. I love how Japanese people especially seem to give gifts that are useful. Like this is it. It's like $30-$40. It's fantastic. So
it's the red light for me. I'll be curious in the comments below. What is it about that light that gets your attention? Because now I have light envy because I have my own red light here. But it was also a gift. I love
that's
this
a
thing.
cigar lighter, Dean. That's
it also stays in my bag. It's also very bright. But it doesn't have a red light.
Oh man.
So now I have light envy. What a great way to end this podcast. Totally agree. All right. Well, we'll see everyone next week.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for talking.
Thank you.